At 21 is St Johnstone centre-back Jason Kerr. And I'll just kind of jump into this one, James. I mean, you know, it's another player who I'm a big fan of. I think, you know, the kind of ups and downs of St Johnstone this season have kind of come in spite of Kerr's form. He got made the club captain this year when Shaughnessy moved on, despite being at such a young age. And I think that just really underlines just how highly they rate him in Perth. You know, he's I'm trying not to go on a kind of detour talking about St Johnstone's season, but I'll kind of minimise it by saying that despite the troubles that St Johnstone had at the start of the year and, you know, the issues that they maybe still do have, although they certainly did look like they turned a corner before this all kind of came apart, it all kind of came about despite their defensive record still looking kind of okay. It's certainly not as good as it was last season, but it's not terrible either. And as things stand right now, after 28 games, they've only conceded 46 goals, but they've also only scored 29. So, you know, they've only scored one more goal in games they've played, and I think that kind of underlines the fact that even though St Johnstone have had a pretty rubbish season by their own standards, hasn't really been a case of coming down to defensive form, and I think a lot of that's down to the fact that Kerr has been so outstanding for them. And going forward, for me, he just strikes me as such a good player, not only as a captain's role, but also one in which Tommy Wright can try and build a squad around. I know there are quite a lot of young players coming through St Johnstone now. Maybe one or two of them might feature later down the line on this list. But for me right now, Kerr's one of the most promising centre-backs in the league, in my opinion. And, you know, again, as a first centre-half, his career's only really getting started.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think that he's got a pretty big future ahead of him. I know St Johnstone fans won't like me for saying this. I suspect that he might need to get a move elsewhere in order to, you know, really kick on a bit. But I think it's important to point out that, you know, Kerr, he's played every minute of every game for St Johnstone this season. There are only 6 players, outfield players in the entire league that have played every minute of their side's game this year, and he's one of them. So I think, you know, that in itself is pretty remarkable, and it shows a sort of testament to his level of fitness. But even when you then start digging into the stats behind him, I mean, he is, for players under 25, he's one of the best performing defenders in that. In terms of defensive duels success rate, he's 5th with about 3/4 of them successful. He's 2nd for overall interceptions in the league. Now, because he's played every minute of every game, that obviously helps. I think when you look at his interceptions per 90, he drops to about, you know, I think he's about 14th, 15th, something like that. But then again, his aerial duel success rate for players under 25 is 3rd with 60, just shy of 68%. So, in terms of the players in these age categories that we're looking at, again, he's a standout performer, and this is playing for a St Johnstone team that, lest we forget, for the first half of the season were utter guff. So he's doing well, yet he could do better, I think, and I worry that he might need to play at a higher level of team in order to really kick on. You know, rather than playing for a team who realistically is the best they can really hope for the foreseeable future, looks to be sort of, you know, bet at top of the bottom half of the table. If they finish 6th, that's quite an achievement. I'd like to see him in a team that's pushing for Europe, you know, pushing for 3rd, pushing for 4th, maybe, you know, an Aberdeen or a Hibs or a Motherwell or something like that, because I think he is a good player. I think he's also really highly rated as well, not just here but elsewhere. I mean, when he signed that new contract in, I think it's January last year, that was off the back of interest from Barnsley, who at the time it was reported they'd made a bid of £250,000 and St Johnstone had turned that down. Now, for St Johnstone, that's a lot of money. But I mean, Tommy Wright came out several times and said he wants a 7-figure fee for Jason Kerr, which would make him one of the most expensive, you know, player sales in St Johnstone's history. He's clearly, you know, Tommy Wright clearly thinks a lot of him, and this is a guy who's, you know, he's coached his fair share of like good young players over the years, and you know, it seems to be in Kerr that his place is. He seems to rate Kerr more highly than most of them. So I think that, you know, that obviously that opinion carries a lot of weight And Tony Wright, he's been around for a long time. He knows football inside and out. He knows the Scottish League inside and out. And the fact that he rates Kerr so highly, the fact that other teams are, rate him so highly, and the fact that St Johnstone are so keen to hold out for such a big fee for him, all of this tells me that, maybe the stuff that we don't see, the stuff, on the training ground, in the dressing room, everything seems to point to the fact that this guy has absolutely got a lot of potential and is vital to St Johnstone. So I think one day he will eventually leave, and I don't think he can be too far away from a Scotland cap, to be honest. See if Stuart Findlay's getting in the squad. I mean, I don't think Jason Kerr could be far away at all, and I think that one day he will be a Scotland international, because he's played for a St Johnstone team that for the most part have been sort of battling around the sort of middle of the table. And I just think that when he maybe moves on to a higher level and then starts proving himself at a higher level, that people will start to really sit up and take notice. And I think look at somebody like Declan Gallagher, who has maybe had a kind of similar career. And obviously Gallagher's a lot older, but he's played for a Livy team that were sort of about mid-table, done well, got his move, and then 6 months later he's in Scotland squad. I would not be surprised to see a similar thing happen to Jason Kerr whenever he does move on, as it does seem sort of inevitable. I know St Johnstone fans will be keen to keep a hold of him for as long as possible, but I don't think many would begrudge me saying that he could play at a higher level and probably will do one day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think what really stands out to me about Kerr is the kind of contrast with some of the players we've mentioned already on this episode, that he, unlike your Finlays and your McAllisters, he didn't get pulled away early on in his career, and St Johnstone have been able to hold on to him, and to their credit, really offer him a fantastic opportunity to develop as a player. He obviously arrived at the club as a young player, but he went on loan to East Fife in Queen the South really before he even broke into the first team, and he picked up so much experience. And he played 36 games in League 2, 43 in League 1, about 20 in the Championship, and that's just league appearances for those clubs when he was on loan at them. And so, we're talking about a player who basically picked up close to about 100 appearances in the lower divisions before he even made his first team debut for St Johnstone back in the 2017-18 season. And I think that is so crucial to the manner in which he's been able to so quickly define himself as such a good, all-round, dependable player for St Johnstone despite his young age. It's no surprise that he was able to kind of not walk into the team, but he was able to kind of come into the squad and very quickly establish himself because he had so much experience at such a young age. Whenever you talk to youth coaches or head of youth departments and stuff, they all say the really crucial stage for any young player is they pick up as much game time between the ages of like 18 and 21, and when the likes of maybe your McAllisters or your Finlays were struggling to pick up game time at Celtics or Newcastles or Derbies, whatever, Kerr was just putting the minutes in the lower divisions. And I think that's a really good testament to why we're now talking about a player who's only now about to finish his second full season in the top flight, and he's already the club captain. I mean, that just strikes me as phenomenal. I mean, it's just something that doesn't happen all that often. And I think it's a perfect testament to just kind of how talented he is at this age and the potential he has to move on. I mean, you mentioned that Barnsley offered, £250,000 for him. I think he's worth at least 10 times that, in my opinion, maybe 20 times that. We're talking about a player here that, I'll put it this way, if Aberdeen were to get what they're hoping for McKenna, you'd expect them to spend at least half that on Kerr. If I was a St Johnstone chairman or whatever else, that's what I'd be demanding, because as you said, he's as good as any young centre-back, in my opinion, in the league so far, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think there are limits to how much St Johnstone could realistically hold out for. Like, say, McKenna goes for £6 million. £3 million might be a bit of a stretch for Jason Kerr, but I mean, this is purely speculative stuff, and we all know how silly the transfer market can be at times. But certainly, if McKenna was to move on from Aberdeen, I think McInnes would be absolutely mad not to go for Kerr, because he seems like the obvious replacement, and I think that's the sort of level that Kerr is ready to play at now. I think he should be playing for an Aberdeen, a Motherwell, a Hibs, a team that are going to be pushing for Europe, a team that are, you know, going to be hoping to go to like places like Ibrox and Parkhead and try and give the Old Firm a game, as opposed to, you know, teams that go and just, you know, it's just a damage limitation exercise. And I think that I'd be really interested to see how he'd get on with better players around him. I think St Johnstone defence is, you know, fine for the most part. I don't think it's great, but I think Kerr's obviously a standout player. But I would be interested to see how he got on when he was surrounded by players of a similar level to him, because I think that in a sort of environment like that, I think that's where he could really excel and really push on.